Let's go ahead and make our way to the seats and get started. Thanks to everybody for coming out in less than ideal weather, but I guess things are clearing up a little bit. Well, of course, the residency, I'm sure, has pavement showing on every road. Thanks for, this is actually our 16th meeting. We're streaming live on Route29Solutions.org, so thanks to anybody who is tuning in. If you could roll us up to our agenda. Today, go ahead and roll it up. And for those watching, this is all posted on Route29Solutions.org under panels and meetings, the February, I keep wanting to say 22nd, February 19th meeting. We will we'll have our normal standing agenda items, including a review of the construction projects. Go ahead and take it down a little bit. And then under our new agenda items, we're going to spend the bulk of our time on continue this discussion about signing and go through a little exercise in looking a little closer at the 4 districts around Rio, picking up on a theme or idea that I think Pete first mentioned 3 meetings ago, and we talked briefly a bit about trying to prepare a brochure of some sort that focused around these 4 areas. But we'll talk more about them later. If you could go on into the presentation and take us to the second page. Thank you very much. Let's start with our introductions. Pete?
Pete Borchers, CMA Properties.
Chip Boyles with the MPO and Planning District Commission.
Morgan Butler with the Southern Environmental Officer.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Philip Chouquette.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
Chris Engel, City of Charlottesville.
Henry Weinschenk representing Express Commerce.
For the people that are attending or watching, Mr. Nunley resigned from the panel, so we just had Brad move up, and I'll give some consideration to whether or not we'll add another panel member. When we started out, we were going to be a 10-person panel, and we ended up being 12, but we'll just chew on that a bit. John was a heck of a contributor to the panel, and appreciate all of the input that he gave.
Just curious, if he chooses to come back into the panel, is that possible?
If John chose to come back to the panel, I would be very pleased with that. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that would be certainly very possible. Our technical team.
Nathan Umberger, Area Traffic Engineer for Culpeper District.
Joel D'Annunzio, Charlottesville Residency, VDOT.
John Lynch, Culpeper District Administrator.
Dave Covington, VDOT, Charlottesville Residency.
Debbie Messina, Philip Chouquette.
Lou Hanner, Route 29 Solutions Communications.
Ken Connors, VDOT Construction.
Kim Kyle Davidson, DTRM for Culpeper District.
Stephen Davis, Central Office, VDOT.
Luke McCullough, Research Council, VDOT.
And Leslie will be taking over for Stephen as our driver on the live streaming. So, thanks again for everybody being here today. Let's go to the next one. From the February 5th meeting, there were 41 viewers, 137 streams, average minutes per stream, 23. Again, right in that pocket about of where we've been for many meetings now. The next item under agenda item 2 is if you could flip to the next one, the comments that came either through the Route 29 Solutions inbox or the provide input section, the public comment section on the website. There were 7 new comments that came in on email, 35 new postings. 35 sounds like a lot. Most of them were 2 people and several exchanges, and I'll say something about that at the end. There was one exchange that involved several comments back and forth about the merits of RIO on both sides of that discussion. There was another exchange about the merits of RIO that I wasn't very pleased with from a courteous and respectful point of view, and that's what I'll mention later. There was one exchange discussing the whole Route 29 Solutions package and what the process was and how much work was or was not performed. There was some confusion, quite honestly, about the number of through and local lanes at RIO and how RIO Road tied to John Warner Parkway. I mean, the number of traffic lanes I think we've been through before on RIO will meet and with the number of existing lanes on RIO, both east and west. I know John Warner Parkway is 2 lanes further to the east, but that doesn't influence the number of lanes that we're constructing on RIO. The next page, please. There was a long exchange about a number of project issues, everything from traffic to architecture. It was just, again, between a couple of people. There was one suggestion about connecting Greenbrier East to Greenbrier West and providing a link between John Warner Parkway and Route 29. That's not something in our scope, or the only thing I noticed there, that seemed to drive a lot of traffic through neighborhoods.
Pretty sure maybe that came from, but yeah, it's an interesting discussion. But.
Well, it's somebody else's discussion to have. Somebody was having trouble finding the February 5th meeting video, and actually we did get that up a little bit late, I think. There was one in opposition to RIO, and 4 that supported the package. If you go to the next one, please. Because of the exchange that took place in a couple of these, we added a note. First of all, there was some confusion a couple of months ago that comments in opposition to, particularly to RIO, were being removed from the website. First of all, no comments have been removed from the website, not for any reason to date. And I hope we can keep it that way. But VDOT, and I agree with them, felt strongly about adding a little preface at the beginning of the provide input site that in all of those words, be respectful and be courteous. People are free to call me whatever they feel like, and that's fine. But whether you're for or against any of these projects, there's no reason to refer to anybody as senile or untruthful. So it's just fair warning that while the box of what will be tolerated is real wide, if if there's name calling or needless discourtesies, we'll either remove the comment or strike part of it. And with all honesty, most of the discourteousness was directed to people who oppose RIO. But everybody's entitled to have an opinion, and their opinions are entitled to be respectful. So we appreciate all the input and the back and forth on the site, but let's keep it as I know where everybody would like it to be, above board and respectful. Is there any questions about that? Okay, thank you. The next. We really didn't have any carryover items from the February 5th meeting. After the meeting, Chuck asked me about the Route 250-29 interchange project and was trying to get a little bit more definition of exactly how that project's design unfolded. And Dave will talk about that. I asked Dave to reference that in his update on all of the projects. We sent Chuck a link to some graphics, but I'll be the first to admit that they may not be the easiest. Hi, Karen. Might not be the easiest to understand, but anyway. So Dave will cover that. We are at, and I changed the title of this a little bit, panel feedback and suggestions for future agenda items, since that's what we were using this section for, but really didn't call it that. So, open it up for any general discussion.
I'll just start with a positive comment. I put it in the email to you earlier this week. I think sometimes we overlook the live streaming, and I know that the CTV meetings were not streamed until it started with this panel. But I had the opportunity to be out of town, so I started watching it on my iPhone, the CTV meeting in New Orleans, finished it up in Atlanta, and it was great. I mean,
it went on that long.
It went on that long, yeah. Maybe that part wasn't great, but having the opportunity to follow it in preparation for a meeting yesterday, it meant a lot to do that, and I'm not sure that we give enough kind of credence to. It's a really good thing to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, thank you, and VDOT really gets the credit for continuing that since we started in March with the first meeting of the first panel. So yeah, that is good. It's good. Anything else, Morgan?
I'm going to pass around handouts. This is a flyer that someone shared with me. If you guys can pass this around, would be great. It's apparently in Carmel, Indiana, there's a Keystone Avenue. Carmel is a suburb of Indianapolis, and Keystone Avenue has a number of interchanges on it, and it's, I think, similarly has urban development along that corridor. They recently built some interchanges along Keystone Avenue, and someone forwarded me some information about it. I'm passing around the last page of that information. I wanted to call everyone's attention to the second picture down. The facade of the underpass there has a detail on it that I think is kind of neat. I just wanted to share it with folks, see if there was interest in maybe doing something similar on the facade of the RIO project, where it says there, I think it's 126th Street, has the name of the street on the underpass itself. I was just thinking it might be neat if our underpass had something defining like that said RIO Road as a way to, just make it a little more prominent, add some significance to the structure itself. And just thought I thought it was neat. Just thought I'd pass it around and see if there was any interest. It wouldn't seem to me that would be a big expense, but just wanted to share it with folks and see if anyone else thought it was a nice feature.
I don't know. Karen?
Well, I didn't make enough copies, I apologize, but I kind of did a little research too and thinking about what we talked about last time regarding signage, and I guess also just some clarification on what's VDOT signage and where it can be and what, because we talked about wayfinding
Yes,
and that
yes.
type of thing. And then we had talked about quadrants.
Yes.
Happening with the signage and all these different things, so.
Do you mind hanging on to that until agenda item 7?
Sure.
If that's okay with you? I'm happy to pass it out now. Okay. But absolutely, we want to spend some time on that, and I think we're going to find, we've got a reasonable amount of flexibility. Not 100%, but a reasonable amount of flexibility, so that'll come in handy. I also have something else to hand out that Henry did and worked on signing as well.
I think, I'll bite on this. I think this is a nice piece, Morgan, thanks for bringing it. I'll ask the question, when is this decision, these treatments going to be, when are they going to be finalized? When is the crux of our input going to be passed? So that we are bringing things like this to the panel? And
Sure.
what type of influence at this point do we have?
Yeah, well, we do have influence. I don't know if we have a schedule from the contractor yet as to when.
No, however, I would think throughout the design process, which is effectively beginning, we would like to provide input to the design builder so that they can begin working this into their design. We have provided them with some pretty strict guidance as to what direction to go for the wall treatments. And if we're going to change that, the earlier we can do that, the better. There may also be cost implications that we need to talk to the design builder about, but I think that probably leading up to the summer, I would hope we could have something nailed down pretty close before then.
Is this panel going to have the opportunity to see the mock-up of what's going to be built?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Is what I guess what I'm asking.
The
Whenever that
RFP,
happens. At this pace, I don't know what's out.
the RFP includes a provision.
These types of I think these types of ideas are great, and I just want to not miss the opportunity to be part of that.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear. I know we had this discussion previously, and some specific features were added to the RFP. We certainly appreciate that, and those deal with the retaining wall facade. I'm specifically, the one that jumped out at me is where on the structure itself, it has the lettering there that would say, in our instance, Rio Road. I just thought that was a neat feature. So that's, I think we're already doing some similar things to what the wall features look like here.
Well, and I think perhaps next meeting or meeting after next, will we be in a position to have a rep from the contractor?
Yeah,
And
sure.
I would think.
Anytime.
Yeah.
They're more than
Yeah.
willing to come and speak with us and just for y'all to meet their
Yeah.
individuals.
Okay.
But an idea specific to the name of the road on the facade of the bridge, I think, there's no big rush for that. And certainly, we have every opportunity to provide that input as they go into the design phase.
Yeah. I would see that as a pretty low impact item. In terms of cost, not in terms of value.
Can I comment on this?
Yes, you may.
The first comment I have is that it's probably an interesting idea in the context of where this is. I can't tell you without looking at the Google satellite, but I suspect that the exit that lets you get on 126th Street is immediately past the bridge of the underpass. And at that point, it makes a lot of sense, even though I'm there. In the case of what we're doing, the decision to get on Rio Road has to be done somewhere where the Burtmar is now. And by the time you get there and it says Rio Road, it's too late.
And
This would just
I
be
don't
an
see it as
addition.
really like a
Yeah.
wayfinding. To me, it's more
Okay.
kind of giving some
Well, if
prominence.
it's
to Rio
strictly
Road and
decorative
making it-
and has no other purpose, and somebody wants to spend the money on
It is not unusual in an underpass for the road you're underpassing
I've
to
seen
sometimes be
little
named.
signs, yes.
I did not take this to replace the wayfinding and signing and by any,
Well,
just a
neither did
description.
I, but
Yeah.
in this case, it may almost be counterproductive. I don't want to argue this, I just want to make the point. There's one more point I want to make, that this is a parkway intersecting with a conventional road. And we have a case of two conventional roads intersecting. But that's just for the record, okay? That's all I have to say.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Norm. Thank you. Anything else? Right? Chris? Karen?
This is off the subject of what I just bringing up, but just our overall schedule that we had issued last year.
Yes.
If we had updates on that.
We talked about that this morning. We are going to update that, particularly for the design build projects, when we get the schedule from the contractor. Because as you recall, the schedules that we looked at previously were indicative schedules kind of based on our presumption of how things could unfold. So now we'll definitely update those.
One column on that schedule that I don't remember if it's there. There's still the issue of the hydraulic road study.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a column?
It is not on there. The funds for the hydraulic road preliminary engineering are programmed for fiscal year 19.
So we're not doing anything on that, despite the fact that there is $10 million allocated under.
Well, the 6-year program, VDOT 6-year program, allocates money across 6 fiscal years. There is no money allocated for the hydraulic preliminary engineering study until fiscal year 19.
But it's still part of Solutions 29.
Yes.
It's not.
Yes.
It is part. So
Yes.
I thought that everything that's on Solutions 29 would be in here.
We could put it on that schedule. We just need a lot more pages to get to fiscal year 19. Those were the construction projects plus the adaptive signals when we prepared that indicative schedule. Mm-hmm.
Because I wonder if ideally that shouldn't be getting on there. Because obviously, with the approval of the underpass, we're building an expressway, so we may as well know what the rest of this expressway is.
Okay, well, let's start by saying what was approved. It was not an expressway. It is not. It has not been. What was approved yesterday is the award of a contract for Burkmar Extension, for the Route 29 widening, and for the Rio grade separated intersection. That's what was approved yesterday. As part of Route 29 Solutions package, a preliminary engineering study for hydraulic road was included for a grade separated intersection at Hydraulic Road, was approved and funded, but there are no monies allocated to that study until fiscal year 19.
Well, that's fine, and I understand the technicalities, but the governor made a statement yesterday that this underpass is not, in his words, the final solution. So I think it's about time that we know what the final solution is.
Well, there may be another panel formed in fiscal year 19. That's not an agenda item, but I hear you. If you would like to see it on the schedule, we'll note it on the schedule.
I guess the mayor wants to say
Mr. Mayor?
I'm not that keen on that study being started right now, personally. Personally, I would like to see this package done, and the study be done in 19, as scheduled right now.
As it's scheduled?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, that absent changing the allocation of money by the CTB, the study will start in fiscal year 19.
Well, I guess it's just a suggestion that we have gone a certain route, and by doing this underpass, which by itself doesn't seem to have a lot of merit,
appreciate your opinion on that.
It's my opinion, and the opinion has been stated quite a bit, so I'm not going to defend.
That's for sure.
If that's what we're doing, and again, my opinion.
Yes.
We're starting an expressway. The more we can advance the preliminary planning on an expressway, the better. So at least we know where we're heading, rather than, build this thing and then what we're going to do then.
Okay.
That's,
All right.
That's my point.
Okay. Any other?
I've got a couple of things, but I'd rather just hold them to the end. Is that all right? 'Cause
That's absolutely.
I assume we're going to have some discussion during.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The only thing I think I heard in terms of actually a future agenda item would be updating the schedule. We can do that, and tied in with that would be maybe now a little sharper edge on the schedule of design reviews. Remember, we had that one chart many, many, many months ago. So, okay. All right.
Maybe a clarification.
Yes, sir.
To the property owners that have recently been visited with blue folder. We're getting a different set of word tracks from the negotiators on right-of-way and easements in terms of time frame for utility relocation than some of the time frames that have been on some of the schedules we've looked at.
Okay.
It would be nice to hear if that's moving forward in a quicker time frame than summer or late spring.
Okay.
In fact, it's going to happen in March, like we've heard. We'd like to know.
If you could continue to bring that up, because obviously some of us aren't being contacted, and it'd be nice to know when there's conflicts like that coming up, because I hate for that to boil up and then they reach out to supervisors or the MPO or whoever. We are operating on one set of information and y'all are being told something separate, so I appreciate you mentioning it.
Address that now.
Well, why don't we address that when we get to the projects updates? Okay? Okay? And
Yeah, again, I didn't want to bring things
Yeah,
up until they
no,
were
good.
on the agenda.
good.
That's good, thanks, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I have some material.
Oh, wait, let's, Henry, or.
It's a short question,
Yeah.
I promise. It's hopefully a short answer. When does the design build contractor, what is their deadline to submit their schedule and everything? I'm sorry, I know it's probably out there somewhere, but what is that?
When we get to the item that updates all the projects, Dave, can you do that? Is that okay, Karen?
Sure.
Okay, all right, thank you. Henry?
Yeah, there was some discussion last week. We're not going to have a discussion, but I have some material.
Yeah, we're not going to have
That
a
is the
discussion.
part of the, already have one here, so to say.
Henry, as I told you before the meeting started, you're welcome to pass this out. We're not going to have a discussion about it.
Well, I understand we don't have a discussion. I still feel that it's appropriate for the record, if nothing else.
That's it, will be part of the record. All right. I updated agenda item 5 a bit because it occurred to me that we're getting long past RFP status. And where really in the future, we will be talking more about the status of contracts, not just the design build package, which we've been so focused on for good reason. I added, just for our record again, on January 14th, the Commonwealth Transportation Board approved the award of a contract for the 250-29 interchange. I added DB, design build, in front of places that only pertain to the design build package. And then yesterday, the CTB did award the design build contract to the Lane Corman team. And I don't know how interested you might be, but their designer, I don't know if we ever mentioned that to you before, is a firm, RK&K. Does a lot of work in Virginia and well familiar with them. I'm probably done work for the city or the county before too. I'm not sure.
Own cities.
Do you know where their headquarters is?
I don't know where their headquarters
We have
is.
they have
Maryland?
an office in Richmond, but yeah, they're up in Maryland.
Yeah, their headquarters, I think, are in Maryland, but they do have a Richmond office. They will be looking, they have been aggressively looking for some space here to establish a local design build project office that VDOT would co-locate with. And about how many square feet were they looking for?
I believe up to 12,000 square feet.
So up to 12,000 square feet.
So they will have a team locally that will handle.
Yes, they will have a team. They will have a team locally, and VDOT will be co-located. Not VDOT. Some people from VDOT will be co-located with that team. Okay. All right. This where we can take care of a couple of the comments. And Dave, why don't you come up here to do your update for the projects and catch Pete's question on schedules a bit and Karen's as well. You're welcome to do whatever you want to do. I think you can just. Here, I'll hold it for you. That's fine. I said Chuck had asked for some information about some of the design features on the Best Buy ramp. So even though he's not here, I'll ask Dave to go through that.
Thank you.
Yep.
I brought this along. This is the board that was used at the last public hearing for the project back in the summer of 2014. The design really hasn't changed much.
Hey, Dave, let's skinny that out here a little bit.
Okay.
Everybody can see it a little better.
The design really hasn't changed much as this project's been moving along. A lot of the elements are still shown here. One of the things I want to mention right off the bat as far as schedule is that the contractor was really wanting to get a jump start on construction. They were issued notice to proceed on February 16th, which was this past Monday.
Could you remind me again who the contractor was?
It's Fielder's Choice. They're a local firm based here in Charlottesville. They were moving along very quickly. Obviously, the weather that we've gotten, the snow, prevented them from going to work on the 16th, this past Monday. Looks like as soon as the weather clears up, which might be beginning of next week, they'll be out there and start working. So a couple of things about this project that are noteworthy that people should be aware of. It does add a lane along 29 here, just north of the interchange with 250 bypass. It adds that lane to the inside of the existing lanes, the median side. That happens between Angus and Hydraulic, so it's going to add some more capacity to that section of roadway, which is greatly needed. Also, in the median between Angus Road, south to Morton Drive, there'll be a new sidewalk constructed there, which will really help pedestrian movements through this area. Along Route 29, the approximate total length of the work and the pavement, new pavement, is about 2,150 feet. So it goes, again, from between Angus and Hydraulic all the way down to Morton Drive. there's an additional lane, so where the ramp is now, going from 29 south to the 250 bypass, that's not going to change locations, but what's going to happen there is it's going to get wider. There'll be 2 lanes, so when you get onto that ramp, there's more storage on the ramp. And one thing that is hard for a lot of people to picture, but I think once this thing is constructed, I think it's going to operate very well. There's a lot of traffic that gets off of 29 onto the 250 bypass, and they want to exit at the first exit on Barracks Road. Well, in order to help accommodate the operations through there, there's a lane that will go all the way from the ramp to Barracks Road ramp. So people will never have to merge over on the 250 to make that movement, which I think is going to help. The other day when I drove through there were 5 vehicles in front of me, and all 5 of them, took the exit to Barracks Road. So in addition to the storage along the ramp, now that there'll be 2 lanes, more people can get on the ramp instead of sitting on 29 waiting to get onto the ramp, which will help through traffic flow. That lane will help remove some congestion. There will also be the right lane of 250, which now you can take as an exit to Barracks Road. That will remain. So the Barracks Road ramp will be 2 lanes as well. So there's been some discussion about a weave movement along that ramp. But it's not really the case. I mean, there's some merges, but there's no true weave where vehicles are trying to cross in front of each other. So I think that's really going to help operations here. That's what our traffic model shows. Also, you see here these Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, Area 4, Area 5. These are locations of the noise walls that we've talked about in this panel before when John Nunley brought up the issue of aesthetics on there and really helped contribute to, I think, a positive change in the aesthetics of the project. Along Route 250 section of this project, there's about 1,600 feet of construction and new pavement. And another feature that's going to help out a lot is the existing left turn lane from the US 250 bypass westbound to Emmett Street. That'll be lengthened as well, so there'll be more storage in that left turn lane, move people out of the through lanes to help traffic keep moving through there. Lastly, a piece of information that we just found out this week, which we think is going to help the situation along 29 a great deal, is the Charlottesville Area Transit had a bus stop just north of Angus Road. We've learned this week that they've relocated that bus stop onto Angus Road. So now the buses circulate through the Best Buy parking lot over to Angus Road where they stop to pick up folks that are looking to take the bus. So we think that all of this combined is a very positive improvement, and we'll see traffic moving much more quickly through the interchange following the completion of the project in May of 2016.
Could you please, the one point I think I missed was the 250 westbound to Emmett Street.
Yes. Okay.
Point that out to me, please.
There's a turn lane as you're driving 250 west, and if you want to take the ramp to go to South or North Emmett Street, there's a loop there and then a ramp, kind of non-traditional. That's a rather short left turn lane now. So what happens is folks that are trying to make that left turn movement to get to Emmett Street, they're waiting on vehicles heading eastbound, so the traffic backs up into the through lanes, and so you have that effect all the way down through the through lanes and people trying to change lanes, which creates a dangerous situation. So if we get all of those folks into this additional storage area on the left turn lane, then we don't have that problem and that turbulence that exists there.
Thanks.
Again, one of the most important things to remember is the configuration of this ramp, not just the additional storage, but there's not a weave section there because the Barracks Road ramp becomes a 2-lane ramp as well, all the way up to the...
There have been a lot of questions about that, so I want to make sure if there's any more. Henry?
Yeah, well, 2 questions. One is the existing ramp stays exactly where it is.
Yes, sir.
And the new ramp will be to the right of the existing.
Yeah, it's just a widening of that existing ramp,
Second lane.
not a relocation, yes.
And everything else to me looks very, very good. There's one question that intrigues me though, is why does the additional lane on 29 start where it starts rather than at hydraulic itself? That's something.
Well, that's a good question, but the reason is to keep people going through the hydraulic intersection the way they do now to reduce confusion. If you add a lane across an intersection, there's confusion about, well, which lane do I go to? Am I in the through lane? Am I in the left turn lane? So to keep people focused and so that they know they're in the correct lane, that lane wasn't carried up all the way through the hydraulic intersection. That's the primary reason for that.
You think it will perform better that way?
Yes. Especially this construction combined with the relocation of the bus stop. Those two things together, I think, are really going to serve to move people through the hydraulic intersection, get them through Angus Road and onto that ramp.
Dave, excuse me, where will the markings start for I assume there are 2 lanes marked for the ramp on 29 itself.
Yes.
How far north on 29 will those markings start?
Markings or signs?
Whatever, designated lanes.
Right.
So that traffic in the inside of the 2 lanes knows it has the ability to turn and doesn't have to start merging.
The markings for, now, I haven't seen the specific.
Right now, the ramp starts stacking at hydraulic.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the reality.
Exactly.
And locals go all the way to the ramp and shove it in, where they can.
Right. Well, that lane where they jump past everybody who's sitting in that traffic and try to merge in will become a turn lane.
That's right. So what I'm asking is how far up 29 does that become apparent?
Right.
To the driver?
North of Angus Road.
North of Angus Road.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, it's not just a turn lane, but it's a turn and through. So you have the option of going through, and you have the option of turning, and that lane turns into the turn lane for the ramp coming from 250 to, 29 to 250 bypass.
So it does terminate, but it terminates under the bridge for the on-ramp.
Yeah, it becomes the on-ramp. And as you know, once you get past this point, it opens up pretty good southbound, especially in the afternoons.
Hey, Dave, do you
Yes.
know, I think this is a relevant question, I'm not sure the answer, we can look into it, but do you know if we're changing out the signs north of hydraulic that show the lane designations? Because I think that kind of plays
Yeah.
into it, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, I
We need
think
to
that
look
the
into
sooner
that.
drivers know where to be,
Well,
Because it should show that left lane designated something different, is that right, or not?
I don't know if the signing goes north of hydraulic, and we can certainly look into that.
We'll find out and
Don't
bring that
believe
back.
it does.
I suspect you can't because of the fact that you start that extra lane late after the intersection. The
Yeah.
truss sign that's further up north probably will have to remain the way it is.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Then I have a minor question.
This lane develops here where the Holiday Inn.
So you cannot mark it ahead of time on the signage? I don't think so.
Right, it might add to confusion there, and I think that's why that's not included.
We'll take a peek and we'll know let's look at what's included.
Then I'm curious about one more thing. I noticed on Emmett Street, past the underpass, I see some black on the drawing.
Here?
Yeah, what are you changing there, if any?
Mostly that's an overlay, and there's a reconstruction of the left turn lane that goes to Morton Drive. I think there was a little bit of an extension on that left turn lane for storage.
Is there any additional lane between Angus and hydraulic that's being added? Or is it the same number of lanes?
Well, about halfway between Angus and hydraulic, this is where that new lane comes in.
Okay.
So, but it does not extend all the way back up to hydraulic.
And it's on the median side?
It's on the median side, that's correct, yes. We take advantage of existing right-of-way wherever we can. Any other questions on this project or comments?
Okay, thank you, Dave.
And we'll have this board here, if anybody wants to take a closer look at it after the meeting, go ahead and pull that down.
Yeah.
One more question.
What? Yes.
On the lane you're adding, are you cutting down any trees?
In the median, yes, so we'll have to take some of the trees out of the median. I mean, obviously, all the trees that we don't have to cut down will stay there, but I think there's going to be a few trees. I don't know specifically how many, but some of those trees, we've already done the utility relocations, and that was part of the critical work that would have impacted the trees. So some trees have had to be trimmed. I think one tree came down as a result of that.
Will you be adding any new landscaping?
Yes, I believe there's a landscaping plan associated with the project. I don't know the specific number of trees, but we can certainly get that information for you.
We'll bring that back to the next meeting, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And is the contractor aware of the, I'm sure they are, there's overnight accommodations in that strip, and they're going to be sensitive to noise issues?
Yes, we've actually got some pretty strict provisions in the contract for noise monitoring. So a team will come out in random intervals and just take noise measurements, and if there's an issue, we have to notify the contractors so they can come up with mitigation measures, dampening on their equipment, not doing certain types of activities at night. Now, a lot of this work, at least in the first phases, especially in the first phases, they're going to do behind barrier walls. So this means that they can do more work during the day, or they don't have to do it at night where they do lane closures because they have restrictions for lane closures. So their approach to this project is good. It's minimize the amount of work that has to be done at night, work behind barrier wall. It's safer for their staff, it's safer for the traveling public, and it has less impact for noise.
And y'all may have already covered this with them, but it was made aware to us too that during construction, you may run into some conflicts, those chicken restaurants, you know, because you have a whole string there. But it's very tight, so to get deliveries, trucks have to stop in the travel lane and back in to then, and so, you know, a lot of times they do this without anybody behind them, and it starts to back traffic up. Just the contractor probably being aware and working with the restaurants themselves may be able to help minimize it.
Yeah, we've become aware of that situation. It's within the city, so we're not stepping in on that one. Ordinarily, that's not a good situation. My understanding is they tend to coordinate it at a time very early in the morning where it isn't problematic. We've got a pretty robust communications plan associated with 29 Solutions. This project is part of that, and you, I'm sure, already seen and heard some of the communications that have gone out about it. But we'll continue to coordinate with that, and that's probably worth a trip over there to, you know, exchange some phone numbers and make sure that we're all aware of what they're planning, when they get deliveries, probably fairly regularly, so that we can make sure that the contractor doesn't do anything that would impact them and vice versa. Good point, thank you. Okay, anything else on 29-250 interchange?
All right. Dave, you're welcome to take them in any order. That's the order I wrote down.
I can do it. Actually, my order matches your order. So,
looky there.
Adaptive signals, everything continues on schedule with phase 1 installation of the adaptive signals. Generally, specifically last week, that primarily involved installation of the loops that are in the pavements for detection for the signals, north of the river up near Town Center and Timberwood, some borings underneath the roadway. Most of this work has occurred overnight, so a lot of people won't even see it or be impacted by it. They do have to close lanes to install the loops, so obviously that restricts them to 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. They're adhering to the same schedule that we're requiring the design builder and the 29-250 contractor to maintain. They've completed tie-ins at Town Center and Timberwood. This is communications so that we can get communications from the signal to the traffic operations center so that we can better control those signals remotely instead of having to send a technician out. That takes a few minutes as opposed to sometimes a few days where you have to send a technician out. Work this week was hindered obviously by the snow and the cold weather. The installation of the loops is a weather-sensitive, a temperature-sensitive operation. So that will continue next week, hoping that if we get a little bit better weather and temperatures increase. So that, again, it's still on schedule. We still expect to complete all of that work by the summer of this year. Next is Hillsdale Drive extension.
Any questions on adaptive signals?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Hillsdale extended. The city and VDOT have executed the administrative agreement for right-of-way acquisition on the post office property. They've submitted partial right-of-way plans. They've given us what we needed for the U.S. Post Office right-of-way negotiations that are about to take place, and VDOT has completed the title work and appraisals for that property. So the city is performing right-of-way for the other properties. The post office is a long lead acquisition. It takes a long time to secure property from the federal government, so we started that a little bit earlier than the other properties. So that's an update there, Chris, unless
Chris?
you have
Yeah.
anything to add to that.
No.
Okay. Any questions on Hillsdale Extended? Okay.
Okay.
I've kind of lumped all three of the design build projects together because the situation we're in right now, that it's the same thing happening on all three projects, but I'll a couple highlights here. Obviously, as everybody I'm sure is aware, the Commonwealth Transportation Board awarded the design build construction contract yesterday, which is for us a step in the right direction. We've also worked on a permit that we've issued to the Lane Corman team. They're very anxious to get out in the VDOT right-of-way and start doing some additional utility test holes, some surveying, some traffic counts, things of that nature, so they can get the information that they need to start designing the project. Any work that requires a lane closure will be restricted to nighttime operations. But there may be some small little things. You may see a surveyor or two out there getting some data, or somebody taking some traffic counts in the near future. So probably starting next week. They thought maybe this week, but I don't think anybody wants to work tonight when it's -4 degrees out. So we'll see. But you may see some activity out there. As Philip mentioned earlier, the notice to proceed to the design builder is scheduled for March 4th. What I mentioned earlier, the work that they're planning on starting probably next week is at their risk. But there's no restriction for them getting additional survey work. With regard to Phase 1 right-of-way, which we talked about just a few minutes ago, all the property owners along the Route 29 right-of-way grade separated intersection who have property that's impacted by utilities have been contacted at this point. I believe all offers have been made. There have been some that have gone to closing already, so that's good news. With regard to actual utility relocations, that work is not expected to start before May, and it might even be into June when they actually start relocating the utilities. So if anybody's been hearing March, there's probably some confusion on their part. Nobody's talking about going out and moving utilities in March. They don't have enough information to do that. They've not submitted their utility relocation plans. They have to finish the design work. VDOT did approximately 50% of that design work, so now they have to finish it up. So nobody's going to be relocating utilities in March. Have you heard March or? Yeah.
Is it typical for a project this size to have 4 different VDOT negotiators handle the parcels?
I believe we probably have quite a few more than that.
Okay.
It is, because.
But on one parcel, I think is what.
No.
Well,
we had one and the neighbors had.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said on one parcel.
We're all getting kind of different messages and you know, the pace of the project was a little hurried for their taste as well. I'll leave it at that. And so they weren't able to answer, I think, a lot of the questions typically when they bring these packages to property owners that they may otherwise be able to answer. They had a plat and a number, and thank you. And that was kind of what we got, and we're digging more.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is, I would say what we've done for this project is not really typical of what's done on other projects. We've expedited we expedited the Phase 1 right away. And we did that because when we were meeting with the offerers at that time, we heard a consistent message that, you know, when we put together our schedule, you know, it's going to be difficult to meet because of the utilities. So we collectively came up with the idea of how to help the eventual design builder meet that schedule by expediting the Phase 1 right-of-way, us doing that work.
Expediting is not shortcutting.
I didn't.
Right.
Yeah, it's not shortcutting. No, I wasn't saying you were. I just wanted to be clear that expediting is not shortcutting. It's just that VDOT moved part of that work up on their shoulders.
Yes. But I also don't want the public or anybody to misconstrue this as the total conversation of right-of-way and easements.
Exactly.
Correct.
I mean, this is Phase 1.
That's what I'm getting
of an undisclosed number of phases.
So our right-of-way folks called in all their resources statewide. We have folks from other districts who come to help out and, you know, make offers and negotiations. They are only authorized to discuss the Phase 1 acquisition. They cannot talk about future right-of-way, they cannot make any offers. That's federal law, we don't want to infringe on that. There will be additional right-of-way and easements in the future, but these are the utility easements and any temporary construction easement that may be needed to construct those utility relocations. Now, a lot of these right-of-way agents haven't seen Lane Corman's plans until today. Those were still proprietary. They have been posted on the website now.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
They have been.
They have, yes.
They were posted, I'm going to mention that in a bit. No, that's fine.
Yeah, so quite honestly, we couldn't distribute this to all these right-of-way folks, their specific design. So they don't know the details of that design. So they were really instructed not to get into that discussion.
But they didn't know many details about what they were asking for, so they definitely didn't go outside of their purview on that.
Right.
So the timing, sorry to badger you on this, but the timing of the condemnation, it being expedited, I would assume the friendly condemnation, I think is the term, is weeks, months? You can't come to an agreement with a property owner, I don't know that.
Well, FHWA does not say, here's the exact amount of time that you have from when you make an offer to when a certificate might be filed. It says approximately 30 days. But there are some instances in which, based on the actions of a property owner, we know for certain that there's not going to be any agreement made. If the property owner comes out and says, I don't care what your offer is, I'm not negotiating with you, I'm not going to accept anything, then we know, and we wait 10 days. 10 days is the minimum before a certificate will be filed. And there's a couple other instances that get in a little over my head as far as certain things that the property owner does, or says, for instance, if a property owner hires an attorney, the attorney says, no, we're not going to settle, take us to court, well, we know the answer.
Right, I got you. You don't have to go any farther. 10 days is the minimum.
10 days is the minimum. Yes. Other
Karen,
questions?
any questions?
Well, I didn't want to speak for you, but I think one of the points maybe that Pete was kind of alluding to too is this is phase one. Phase one of taking right-of-way is utilities, which we've been told, yes, right-of-way will need to be utilities. What VDOT is telling property owners now, though, there will be additional right-of-way taken, and that's kind of a surprise to us because we haven't been hearing that from these meetings and from y'all.
Okay. A lot of the future right-of-way, phase two, which will be fee simple right-of-way, right-of-way that's paid for and becomes property owned by Commonwealth of Virginia, is generally to close the gap between the existing right-of-way and the beginning of the utility easement. Those utility easements are as far out as we're going to get. So most of the fee simple right-of-way is that, in a lot of cases, little small wedges to close that gap, where the temporary construction easements are now, because the contractor needs to be able to get from the right-of-way, and it may be a foot, it may be 5 feet, to that easement. So what is shown as a temporary construction easement now, when that relocation would expire, and then would have to be purchased in the future as fee simple right-of-way. Of course, there will also be some temporary construction easements, but those limits of those utility easements are as far out as we go, with the exception of, I believe, one situation for stormwater management. So, but there will be future right-of-way negotiations.
And we'll have right-of-way plans and drawings.
Yes. And that's why they are not allowed to talk about it right now, because we do not have approved right-of-way plans for fee simple right-of-way acquisition at this time. Now, I encourage you to download the plans that Lane Corman has developed, which are posted on our website, to look at what those impacts are.
I don't think they're posted on Route 29 yet, so that's what, I'm going to, we'll get back to that.
As early as this morning, VDOT did this.
But they were only posted on another section of VDOT's website a couple hours before the meeting. So I'm going to get all that information to you.
Other questions?
I have a hard time understanding the thing that you select a area for the easements for the utilities that starts somewhere outside of the existing right-of-way, and it also ends as you go towards the right-of-way again. It ends before you reach the edge of it, and that kind of surprises me. Why wouldn't the easement start at the current limit of the current right-of-way and just go wherever it has to go?
Well, I'll try to draw a picture, and maybe this will help. And this will be very simple, but, you know, we've got an existing right-of-way, and our roadway is in here, inside of it. Again, very simple.
Yeah.
So we know that in the future, there's a slight widening that has to be done to accommodate the project. And that line might be here. We'll just say it like that. So say this is 2 feet, as an example. But we need something out here for the easement. We are not authorized at this point in time to acquire this property because we do not have right-of-way plans that are approved that show that we have a need for that property. So what we do is we buy this as an easement.
When you say buy, we pay for
Pay.
the use
I'm
of
sorry.
that.
Yes, thank you.
For a specific period of time.
Pay for the easement for that property. This area here is a temporary construction easement, which expires once the work to relocate those utilities here is completed.
Okay.
So we are adhering to federal law by not purchasing right-of-way that we are not authorized to purchase at this time.
So
In
essentially,
that particular case, when the work is over and the easement expires, the right-of-way limit is the existing right-of-way limit.
It
in that
is.
particular
It is. The right-of-way limit, so there would be a wedge in here that is not owned by the Commonwealth or is not an easement in the Commonwealth's name. So in the future, what would happen is when we do have those approved right-of-way plans, this becomes the right-of-way line. Does that make sense?
okay, I think what I understood, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I understood is you may or may not need that area that in this case you showed us 2 feet, which whatever it is, but
Not for the utilities, but we would need it for future right-of-way for the construction of the roadway. So what we have authorization for is only relocation of the utilities, not construction of the roadway.
and that other area that, which is shown here as 2 foot wide, you may acquire as, as a condemnation where you get.
Well, we hope it's not a condemnation.
Or you may not. That's what you're saying.
No, we will. We will.
You will definitely acquire it.
Yes.
Okay. So the right of way, when it's all done, will be wider than it is.
But not definitely a condemnation, and only in some slivers of places. Right.
But in some places, the right of way at the end of the game, VDOT will have widened the right of way that VDOT owns. Okay. Understood.
And mostly it's at the intersection, the corners. I mean, there's a couple of areas. There's some areas where we don't need the additional right of way.
Most of the area,
Yeah.
by far. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I hope that clears it up. I know it's complex. It took us a while to really figure out, you know, the exact order of how we do this and still stay.
I think I got it all wrong.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is there a short answer to how many phases there might be?
2 phases. Phase 1, utilities. Phase 2, roadway.
The area outside the 2 feet, to your left, to my right of it, that's a temporary easement for utility?
This here?
Yes.
So this would be a permanent easement.
But it's just an easement as opposed to be simple because it's just for the placement of utilities.
Correct.
Okay.
And we have to have that easement for future maintenance, so that, and it's, generally, these are joint use easements between VDOT and the utility owners, so the utility owners can go back in and, you know, make any repairs that they needed.
Can you speak a little to what the property owners will be allowed to do in those easements, those utility easements?
Generally, planting low vegetation, it can be used as green strips. There's one situation where working with the property owner, that, you know, that very thing came up. What can we do? We said, you can plant low vegetation in there. You can't, you know, build a building in there. Temporary structures or minor structures can be placed in there, but nothing permanent.
How about parking?
Parking is fine.
Parking is fine.
Yes.
Did we talk once that the intent was for the easements to be within the setback area of
Yes.
the county?
Yes, and we have stayed within the setback area, so there's no change in use there. There's
Well, let me go ahead and raise one question. What about a sign overhang?
a sign overhang.
Yes, not the actual sign foundation, but some part of the sign overhanging into the airspace of that easement. Would that be allowed?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What is the setback?
Depends on what the zone is.
Yeah, generally in there, 30 feet is what we've seen. We've actually stayed within that 30 feet. My saying always was that it's 25 feet so that people don't get a little greedy there. So we've got some room, about 5 feet, in worst case scenarios, in areas where we had to go as much as we could get. But the most we got was 25 feet from the existing right of way.
There's language being negotiated right now in Albemarle County with a minimum setback of 10 feet and actually a maximum setback of building of 35 feet. So a lot of this does come into conflict with that new language if something were to be developed down the road. So, I mean, that's a zoning text amendment. Am I wrong, Mark? I mean,
No, that's correct.
Okay.
You can have planned development zoning with any setback that the property owner can get the county agree with.
Well, but is that proposed or is that passed?
I don't know the status of it.
That's
being
proposed.
Yeah, it was being.
Well, you know, quite honestly, we've worked with the best information. That
I understand. I mean, I'm just pointing it out. And the other thing is, just to mention this, you know, so we see both sides of an easement, the property owner still is paying taxes on that as if it was the property owner's full parcel. The uses are reduced, and the language of the easements that I've read have travelway access across our properties for said trucks and that sort of thing.
The utility.
I mean, there are other considerations that really are in this.
And that's where the compensation comes in. You're
I understand.
absolutely correct.
Yeah, let's just call it all out.
And the utilities will only be underground, correct?
Yes.
No future, anything above the ground?
No, there's nothing proposed above ground that's not there now. For instance, if there's overhead electric lines and the pole needs to move 3 feet, well, that's going to stay overhead. There are plans, there's an existing Dominion overhead crossing right at the intersection. It's in the plans right now that would be removed and go to underground. It would go north of the intersection, then go underground and come back up. So that's a benefit there that, you know, we've heard some comments about whether or not that aerial line would go underground, and the answer is yes. So, with no additional overhead.
Dave, thank you very much. Thank you very much. As regarding the posting, what was posted earlier today on VDOT's business page, and I'll send you this link, and we'll get a link to it from Route 29. But what was posted today, after yesterday's action, were the technical proposals for all 3 of the shortlisted teams. So it's the selected contractor as well as the other 2, and also the price proposals. I was going to read you the web link, but rather than do that, I will send it to you before the end of the day, and if you want to go see them today. And they're listed, the Lane Corman's is listed first. At this link I'm going to send you, you'll see a column that says shortlist, and if you look under that column, you'll see the technical proposals, and then you'll see final award, and under that list, you'll see the price proposals. The plans that were submitted as part of the technical proposal will be under that column that says shortlist. And then we'll get that all cleaned up and get it linked to route29solutions.org. But all of that just happened this morning, and I wasn't aware of it until I got here. I did get a little quick tweet out just to that business page, but I'll make sure you have that information before the end of the day. All right, let's get on to a discussion about signing. This is just continues to be very important to me because I think it provides us with a lot of opportunities. And go ahead. And what I'd like for us to talk about today a bit is how we might name these 4 districts. Now, Dave and I have gone back and forth. Do you call them a quadrant? Do you call them a district? Dave likes quadrant. I like district. But in the big scheme of things, that's of less important to me. I just like the word district because business district. I think we have some opportunities to do something here early in the execution of a project that could be a benefit. So I thought we would go through a exercise a bit of just considering what each one of those areas, this gets back, really, I'm stealing all this from Pete, the idea of branding a sector, which to me has some opportunity, particularly with regard to some of the discussions we've had over the last couple meetings. In your package, you see 2 familiar graphics that we've had, those maps before. Nathan also sent me his categorization of, not categorization, list of the businesses that do exist in the project area in each one of the districts. I just thought you would like to have that. Not that we're going to review the list, but I thought it was important information that help identify. Let's see if we can get that out of the light there a bit. Henry did some work carrying on from something that he did last time, and I just want to share that with you. A few things there we would have to talk about, but Henry took the time to do this. You probably already have it. Oh, yes. Do you need more copies, ma'am?
That would be great.
Yeah,
I have 3 copies, that's all I have.
Absolutely. Can you find a place to whip off 15 of those?
That's all the same. Yeah.
And I thought we could take some time just to look at, and for now we can say northeast. Just brainstorm or suggest some possible names for descriptors of each one of those areas. And I'm just saying this as an example because it's an easy one in my judgment. It's only my judgment. But the southeast area, quadrant, district, is pretty well defined by Fashion Square. The northeast is rather defined by Albemarle, The west side is a little bit different because there's more of a mixture of retail and commercial establishments there. But I would like us to spend just some time thinking about what might be a brand or a descriptor for, and whether we call them districts or quadrants, whatever floats your boat now, we'll worry about that
Okay,
later.
I put in a vote for district because I used quadrant on one of my signs. My wife saw it and said, no. People won't know what that is.
That's why I like district, I
On
think.
behalf of my wife.
Okay. Karen?
Kind of an overall, I kind of bounce off of other people's ideas too, and what the copies are being made to give us you call it branding, identification, sense of place, like what Morgan was showing on his pictures with the bridge. It already has a name, it's the Rio District.
Mm-hmm.
And to call it the Rio District, and then even on the bridge, this is the Rio District, so people know as they're coming in, they're coming to that sense of place, and then for the signage to build off of that, what the quadrants or districts
So
are.
the entire area is known as the Rio, so that's more than just a political subdivision, it's.
Right.
Okay.
Like, kind of like Atlanta has Buckhead.
Yes.
So
Yep.
this is the Rio District of our.
Okay.
But then you have to go back to quadrants.
Well, yes,
Yeah,
but
because
that's.
it's one
well,
big district.
Right, within the Rio District, yes, the locator quadrants or.
Okay.
districts, yeah.
Okay.
If you call the whole thing a district, then yes. And then it's either quadrants or something else, but it can't be district again. It has to be.
Okay.
Yeah, thesaurus.
Yes. No, I can see the.
Okay,
point.
no, I see what you're saying. So it has an identity, and then there could be 4 sub-identities within that.
Right, to create more of a sense of place than just signage that's telling you to turn left, right to this business. or that
Okay.
business.
Okay. All right, then let's just take that thought for a minute. If that was a big umbrella thought, we were still looking to brand the 4 areas. Let's think of some names in that context. But and Karen makes a good point. But now let's still think of the 4 areas. Pete?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
And maybe Mark, you could weigh in, or Brad. Does the county see any merit in this idea moving forward out of this construction project in terms of forward thinking? Are we planting a seed here that we could build on as a county, or are we just talking about the construction period of 2 years and inside right-of-way signage and that sort of thing? Because I think it's a different approach depending on whether we're thinking long-term or we're thinking just to get through.
I'll start, and then Brad can tell me why I said what was wrong. I think Karen's on to something, because county already calls for a really focused master plan for this area, a small area plan. It's been envisioned through Places 29 as being a midtown. So the idea of making it a Rio district or a Rio center or whatever, I think is a pretty solid idea. I think that could flow, and that's kind of a long-term thought for the county there, so that works pretty well.
Okay.
Well, another question comes up. Do you want to call it Rio District, or you want to call it Midtown? And then you have districts or quadrants.
So we're
inside.
county, so we would take about 6 months and have a public process.
Right.
Then decide what the name is.
Well.
So that's the point of bringing up is we call it northeast, southeast, and then all of a sudden 2 years from now have to rebrand and go through the small area plan.
My thought, and certainly there's process that has to take place here.
Call it Chouquet Land.
I'm sure that would be popular. My thought was that we had an opportunity here, perhaps, to do something that would be long-term. That could work also during construction, but that would be long-term. Because as you all have pointed out, and I agree with you, it's not just maintenance traffic and how you get around and signing for 2 years. It's how do you get beyond that? What happens beyond? So I asked Dave, and Nathan's done some work on this to see, were there a bunch of, I kind of knew the answer, but were there a bunch of hard and fast rules that were going to limit our ability to think here? And actually there aren't. I mean, there are some that we can't mess around with. But for right now, our ability to think broad is fairly unbridled. It does get to a different issue when we talk about, are we going to list individual businesses on signs and how that might happen. Doesn't mean we can't do it as you did in your sketches, Henry. For now, I would just say, pull back, and Karen even pulled us back further to say, well, wait a minute, there's already a name here, whether it's Rio or Midtown or whatever it might, or Borch's Land, whatever it might be, Pete's Place, it can be on the table, but we still need to look at some descriptors or identifiers for the 4 areas. Joe, did everybody get what Karen handed out then? Karen, did you want to run through this for everyone?
Well, it's very basic in general. It's just
Go ahead and give me
searching the internet.
And he tried to, I gave it back.
The other thing is, I don't know that these wayfinding signs are VDOTs, or is this Albemarle County's area?
Okay, well, that's
Their
fine.
place and that type of thing, but just to get an idea, like this signage for Buckhead has, again, whatever the name, Rio, whatever, the area, and since we are trying to get temporary and then into permanent, if it is going to be created, this naming, it should be started during the construction phase so that the
I agree.
community is aware of that name and familiar with it, not 2 years later when it's finally finished.
I agree.
But just an idea, whatever the quadrants are, they can be color coded, with arrows, obviously, which we've seen on those different codes. And then just an example of what Charlottesville's already done, some of their wayfinding. And then this was an article, I think it was from NBC 29 from 2009 when they put that out. But again, since with Chip and his group, this was a concern with helping businesses as well. So it just kind of has a combination of needs that it needs.
Well, and Pete wasn't here for this last week, or 2 weeks ago. Part of this tied into that just idea of some sort of brochure, hard brochure, that may be prepared where we have a very kind of a tourist type brochure that had these areas outlined in pretty simple graphics with the names of the area, and then this will be more geared during construction, listed the businesses in each one and indicated how you get to them, particularly during this 103-day period. And Mark Graham pointed out that it has to be not only how you get to them, but how you get out of there and somewhere else that you want to go. But it seemed to me that everything tied back to what are you calling these areas? And could we think of some things now that might move forward, not only through construction, but permanently? Because I agree with what Karen said completely. We don't want to spend 24 months with some names, and then 24 months and a day, it changes.
And that's why I'll go ahead. I like the Rio thing. I think if you start changing it to a Midtown now you're starting from nothing to build it. As a new guy here, I didn't have to be here long for somebody to say, hey, it'd be the Rio area. I already kind of know that in my mind. So I definitely like that. I've got my concerns about Rio, Northwest, Rio. Now you're starting to really.
Yeah.
Because the name of the road is Rio.
Maybe just Rio East and Rio West could be enough to get people to the right locations. But I definitely like the Rio because I think it's existing. People already have a general idea of where it is, what it is. And I think it's easy to then build on.
Okay, but you have some concerns about a further
I love the
breakdown.
quadrant thing, but, from a marketing, if your name's that long, then it makes it that much more difficult. Maybe just Rio East and Rio West is enough to get people close enough to where they want to go do business. I don't, it's a concern. I don't know how valid.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, but, I'm looking from a point of view of business people who are losing somewhere between half and 2/3 of the traffic. And the quadrants that are the most critical for people to figure out how to get there are the ones that are on the other side of the intersection when you are on the business lanes. And that's why I still like to, make a stand for using business names.
Yeah, well, Henry, I'm not trying to indicate that we could not do that at all.
I still like to think, because, in a way, I'm a little bit inspired by what you see at large airports, especially airports that have multi-terminals.
Yeah.
They tell you what airline
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
They're not bashful about telling you that that's United, and this is Air France, and this is whatever. And essentially, these people are already going to hurt substantially by being out of sight, out of mind type thing. And that's why I think it's important. And I'm especially concerned about those people where you either have to make a U-turn to get to them, or you have to know that you have to get past the intersection. That's why you noticed I didn't necessarily list businesses that were on the first quadrant as you go into the business lanes. It's after that. Here's a U-turn, here you have to continue on, and I think I added one more, which is when you make a right turn.
Let me make.
Maybe you could eliminate that one.
Let me see, because that we're kind of on the same page here. Are you thinking that let's say the southwest quadrant should be Acme Auto quadrant? Okay, okay.
Colonial
But
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Quadrant should be named for kind of like the identifying business there.
Well, I'm trying to identify all the businesses that have somewhat of a signature building, even if you're not going to Taco Bell. But if you know that Taco Bell, you have to make that U-turn. I know that my insurance agent has an office just past Taco Bell. Okay, and that's why I'm trying to use, first of all, the food people and the gas stations are the ones that are going to hurt first.
I'm not trying to argue. I'm not trying to argue against for or against the names.
Well, I'm just trying to make.
I got that, but I wish we could come up just one more level from that for a moment to think of, because while the character, again, I am not arguing against adding names. Logo signs have names on them. They come up, they come down. That's not a problem. But I've been trying to think more of the character of those 4 different places, which will probably remain the character for some time to come. I don't know.
Well, I hesitate a little with that, and to your thing, Henry, and I do think the businesses need to be there, but I hesitate with naming quadrants. I'll just give you my specific story. When I moved here, everybody kept talking about the Shoppers World Center.
Yeah.
And I was going, where's Shoppers World? I can't find Shoppers World. Well, there's a center, but you had to be an old timer around here to know where Shoppers World was. So
you could argue that maybe you don't want to name the quadrants. I picked that up because that was discussed before, but in a simplified version.
Well, I actually have an idea for that. I'll throw it out here, and y'all can shoot it down then. Is if we were going to color code these things, and we're going to have colors, why don't we just call it that? Rio blue, Rio orange, Rio green, and just say that identifies, now you've got the color in the sign, you know it's Rio, and you look for the color, and then you look for those businesses under that color.
Or the green district, the blue district.
Yeah.
Red district.
I think that, I think that's very, very simple, and I think it's a very easy, if we were looking at something for the construction period, Mark, I think that's very intuitive.
I would, sitting in county planning meetings, I would anticipate the feedback to be, we need more character in our environment than that.
Probably well.
And so I'm hearing the Magnolia District, the Dogwood District, you know, but if we're looking at.
That could be enough for me not to like it. No, I'm teasing. I'm completely teasing. I'm completely teasing. I'm
Well,
teasing.
This makes too much sense, Mark, is what I'm saying.
That's an engineer, what can you say?
Well, this was a shopping district decided from scratch. I could see where you could do this, but unfortunately it isn't. And the signs I'm proposing are not just for during construction, they're meant as permanent. As a matter of fact, they only show the detours as temporary, and they get there early and they stay there afterwards. And that's why also each business that's mentioned is a slat, so you can't replace a slat when something
We could take a
happens.
clue from Reston, and they had two roads on opposite sides of the toll road there, in the Dulles Toll Road. One was sunrise, one was sunset.
Yeah.
So, well, let's just, again, we haven't talked about how in the world can we possibly hope to advance any of these thoughts. But be that as it may, for a minute, what's, any general feelings about, you know, Karen's suggestion, what I'm hearing from others is, say, okay, in terms of district, it's one district as opposed to four.
I would just say, you know, kind of have to define the ultimate use of these names, because if it's going to be on materials that are disseminated in the community or radio spots or whatever, you're using it to identify the location. If it's on the signage, you're more or less, it's wayfinding. And so the naming becomes a little bit more different based on that. Based on Karen's comment, I mean, if you're saying it's in the Rio Northwest District, then people know automatically it's at Rio. They don't have to figure out how to get there. They don't have to look up a map. So it's defining the location. I'm resistant to calling it all Rio because the communities around there call themselves something different. So either we're creating a business identity or you're creating community identities. And that's also what we have to decide here. Obviously, we're leaning towards creating business identities, which is fine. It's just, I don't want those communities, Commonwealth, Berkmar, you know, the Carsbrook, Northfield, Woodbrook, those areas, they're not going to want to be called Rio Northwest or whatever it is. So.
Are they part of your magisterial district?
Yeah.
Are they all? So, hey, it's your district.
They all are in a magisterial district, yes.
Okay.
It's a fine line between identifying the community node that's out there in those different quadrants.
Right.
Versus the business nodes. And we're leaning towards the business side. I just want to make sure we're careful there. If we're talking about identifying businesses, then, you know, these 5 people really are not the people who should be saying too much, because y'all are the ones who market your businesses. You're all the ones who figure out what the identity is. So,
well,
I'm just throwing that out there because I'm not saying name it after businesses. I'm just saying,
well,
to attract your businesses.
I was ready to name it Fashion Square.
Well, that is.
But no, I mean,
they live in Abington crossings and all. And they don't say they live in Abington. They say that I live near Fashion Square Mall.
Yeah.
You know, there are landmarks that are creating these nodes, and they are business landmarks.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's just my thoughts.
I guess we started with the quadrants. Should they be districts, and what should they be named? And the more I hear this discussion, the latest I can come up with, trying to blend different ideas, is call them the red area, the blue area, the yellow area, and or whatever, because we already did this here.
Or whatever.
They're different colors. So, calling it the blue area and the red area and so on, to me, makes a lot of sense.
I will admit that.
Name
I'm
or
sorry.
not, it's a separate issue.
Yeah,
Maybe
I will admit that my thought was clearly down the business side is what I was thinking. Because at least as I've gotten to know more about this area over the last year, the neighborhoods do have their identities, and we've talked a lot about the businesses, and frankly, to be quite honest, to be quite honest with you, some of it is driven a bit by experience in other places, and just, it seems to be an opportunity to do something that may be able to carry forward in the 29 quarter. I don't know, that would be up to others, not me.
And whatever the name may be, if it's not Rio, still the thought is to create an overall identity for the area, including the neighborhood.
Yes.
Because 29 comes through the middle of all of it, and so whatever that
Yeah.
name or whatever may be, instead of further cutting and segregating it to create a unifying, because in other towns, they have midtowns or something.
Yes,
Midtowns,
yeah.
but within midtown,
Yeah.
there are neighborhoods, there's business
Yes,
sections.
absolutely.
And they're all identifiable.
Absolutely.
Instead of trying to create it, just all these different pieces.
Say, what did you say about Midtown?
That was how it was actually identified for a small area plan. It was an urban center that we were going to come back and look at doing a detailed plan.
Well, you have two supervisors here, they can tell you how quickly they can come up with Midtown as the official name.
I would just, as the city rep, there is a fledgling Midtown Business Association in the city on West Main Street. Now, that's probably news to most of you. because it's fledgling.
Does it have a color? Okay.
They meet.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
My perspective, for what it's worth, is that Rio East or West might have a little traction. I might disagree with Chip a little bit in that it's fully formed, in that people automatically know, yeah, I'm going to Rio, East or West. But I think it might have enough recognition that you could build something that would make sense to enough people, so that over time it would become Rio District.
Definitely not easy.
Pardon me?
It's not easy.
Well, no, it's not, no. If it was easy, we wouldn't need to be here.
And you made the point earlier, I'm not sure even if this group had the greatest four names or plan, that it's really in our purview to take that forward.
Well, I think my thought there was it's in our, as we have with other things, it's in our purview to make some suggestions and recommendations. You know, because that's why this is covered up right now. That bottom says process for selecting and implementing. You know, if we only spend our time on highway signs, the excitement level kind of peaks quickly. Not for Nathan. I'm sorry. I've offended all my buddies here. But, you know, there's just so much to do. But there are opportunities, and maybe that's what we should spend some time on. There are opportunities. There are opportunities that are within VDOT's purview, and only VDOT's purview, but not to decide what an area is going to call itself. I mean, I don't, you know, so that's where the juxtaposition is. I mean, VDOT can prepare a set of signing plans and implement them without ever talking to us, or VDOT can prepare a set of signing plans that we would have input into within the context of programs that VDOT administers, but VDOT can't decide what to call, I don't think it can, or it should, decide how to brand a business district or quadrant or whatever.
Karen, I would ask you this. So when I think about this stuff, I mean, Fashion Square and Elmo Square has their identities. There's not a person who lives in this community for more than a year that doesn't know where those places are when you say it. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Red Lobster, which is, I guess, technically not part of Fashion Square, but if you say Red Lobster or Fashion Square, people know exactly where to go. It is? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So, you know, it's interesting because I wonder how you feel with, you're basically changing the identity of that quadrant of Fashion Square. It becomes a different name. And I wonder if that's counterproductive for you. The other side, the western side of 29, that is a very...
the whole area of Fashion Square?
Well, yeah, I'm saying it already has an identity, and we're trying to reinvent the wheel.
In all frankness, and it's funny, John John and Dave, I guess, have been talking about something, and I wasn't going to say what I came up with just in my mind and thinking about this over the last couple weeks, but it was exactly this. Seriously, exactly this, which was Albemarle Square, Fashion Square, Rio Hills, and Berkmar Square. Now, do those make sense, or what? To me, just what you said, if you look at the identity of the east side, it's pretty distinctive in a couple of places. The west side,
Not so much.
not so much. But that doesn't mean that you can't create an identity that becomes well known. Now, whether it's those four or some other four, or it's only one in colors, I mean, any of that's fine. I just think we have an opportunity to bring something to the county, I guess, is where it would have to go. I don't know.
Yes, but I'm trying to look at the bigger picture.
Oh, yeah, and that's where I'm wrestling with
The entire
it.
area,
Yeah.
because we're right now going to put a canyon right down the middle of it, so instead of splitting it up even further, try and creating a unifying
Yeah.
central place with maybe different names,
Mhm.
quadrants,
And I-
that are more identifiable.
Yeah, yeah,
to that
no, I-
quadrant, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
And I fully, real quick, Henry, I fully see that point. I was just concerned that now we're contradicting an established identity for at least two of the quadrants. And I just wanted to see.
No, that's not what I was saying.
No, you weren't saying that. I'm just
Oh.
saying it seems like we're headed down that path to where we're creating a different identity for that quadrant that Fashion Square is in now. It's going to start to have a different name.
No, that's not what I said, but
I'm not
didn't make myself
saying that's
clear.
what you were saying. I'm saying that's where I see us heading, is that I was wondering, so I'm,
Well,
okay, I was thinking,
what happens
apparently
in
I'm.
Fashion Square is it's kind of limited in terms of retail establishments, although
Mhm.
there's some that are not part of Fashion Square. But one thing that occurred to me as a proposal, we had Rio District, Midtown. Why not simply Rio 29 and then the blue area, the green area?
That's another thought.
So let's say if I were to own the Jiffy Lube, I would say located in the green area of Rio 29. Now you have a definition, and the signs would match the colors of it. Already got the colors picked.
I like the colors to identify the signage. I'm not in favor of the colors for naming the quadrants.
Oh, okay. So you're cool with a color being associated
Right.
with an
Not
area,
the name of
but
it.
not the name of the
But
area.
if I heard Henry, he was saying just don't name the quadrant.
That's the other possibility, just don't name them.
Yeah.
But just keep a color scheme so that you get people where they want to go.
I do think Karen's absolutely right, creating a name for the area
Yeah.
is
Right,
really
it wasn't,
important.
yeah, obviously.
Do we cut off at 4? Can we extend it? Yeah, extend it. I mean, we'll try to wrap up by 4, but let's don't have it drop the streaming. Thank you, Steve. I'm sorry. I like, while I may have different opinions and thoughts about Canyon versus other things, I hear what you're saying about, regardless of those descriptions, this could be an opportunity to pull together the area in a way that perhaps it isn't now.
Right, and not instead of these quadrants.
Yeah.
Just as an overall addition
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll ask a question, because the timeframes are so tight.
Yes.
We meet every 2 weeks. What does VDOT need back from whomever in terms of some direction on these areas, signage, that sort of thing? Because we,
Yeah.
this panel and VDOT have control over signage inside of the right of way.
Inside the right of way.
And so
Yes.
the county
Yes.
and the plans that are out to adjust to this construction are
Mhm.
that that consideration is going to be handled at the county level for signage outside.
Outside the right of way, yes.
So this panel only really is talking about signage inside the right of way. This is an overall discussion.
Yes.
But it would require some coordination between
Yes.
the county and
Yes.
this panel and VDOT.
Yes, it will.
And it's my understanding that the Board of Supervisors has a work session hearing on the 4th, is that correct? Which is right around the corner. Before our next meeting, I believe.
Yeah,
So-
the day before. The day before.
Point is, things happen quickly. The Albemarle County Board of Supervisors are going to be hearing some thoughts, some ideas on how to mitigate the construction impacts. Signage is a big part of that.
Okay.
What can happen that happens between now and our next meeting, so we're not going to come up with this in 5 minutes.
Well, let me just think out loud here for a minute.
So, I was
What-
going to say,
no.
do you have the graphics available on your presentation?
Which ones?
The ones I sent you with
The
where
one-
we added the kind of colors and where I can kind of talk like a point or two.
Flip back, no, flip forward, I'm sorry. That one or the other one?
Keep going, next one.
The next one.
Yes, that one. So this is where we kind of, based on last meeting, we have, and like we kind of talked about last time, we've got our directional signing that we're going to have to use to get people around the area, and then we want to integrate everything we're talking about today to that signing. So, Mr. Forges, to your question, what we need would be what we want those colors and names, where we kind of added those signs to the directional areas to look like. And of course, this is the construction, and you see off to the right, you might miss it if you don't notice, but where the one sign with the colors and the identifications is, we mentioned we've got to have the perimeter signing, kind of like Henry noted, something to try to, whether it's identifying businesses or the areas,
right,
something to let people know what these colors and districts mean, or quadrants, whatever the choice may be. So this is kind of where when you're asking what we would need, we need what we need to insert into those places, if you will. So this is kind of where we're heading towards in terms of what we think things would look like from a navigational standpoint. But, like you said, Philip, it's not VDOT's place really to decide what these should be
Right.
called. Now, if we had to make an executive decision during the construction period, certainly that could happen, that if the county process takes a little while and we needed to make an identification, but we don't really want to play that role.
Yeah,
Let that be a local.
I agree. But backing up a little bit, when generally, Dave, based on what you know about the advancement of construction and when signs would go up, when would you need direction?
Generally, the final phases of the design, the last third of that design process is when detailed sign design occurs. Generally you have some conceptual signing layouts that evolve throughout this process, but
When would that be?
I would hope that, again, as we approach summer, we've got some kind of definition of what those signs
So
should include.
May, June? Based on what you know
June,
now.
I think May to June will be a good
May to June. I'm just trying to think backwards a minute, Pete, that we had this meeting today, we just write up some notes from the discussions that we had today, district, quadrants, colors, names, just capture some of these notes from what we had today. There's a discussion in front of council, the Board of Supervisors, March 4th. Some ideas and thoughts come out of that. We have opportunity for another meeting to digest that information. And I think at some point, all we can do as a panel is make a recommendation or be another part of that process that makes a recommendation to the county, to the board. Is that what would happen, Mark?
You're making a recommendation to the county, but it's VDOT's decision, right?
Well,
No.
Not what I'm thinking about, not in terms of,
Inside the right of way, it's VDOT.
Well,
What-
now,
yeah.
this is different than inside. and
I understand,
outside.
that's why.
right,
In my research last night, what I really found was that this is a county decision, regardless of where the signs are placed. This is a place naming exercise,
Yeah.
branding, identification exercise. What I found was most applicable to me is the county's street naming ordinance. The process that's there. The people in the community develop the names, work with the county, Board of Supervisors has ultimate decision. You just provide that information to us so that we can coordinate with the design builder for the signs, regardless of what those names are.
So, to be clear, permanent signage with aesthetic that meets the ARB or Board of Supervisors approval, naming, all that stuff, that can happen inside of the right-of-way as part of this project, if we can get our stuff together in terms of naming. Is that right?
yes.
It's a great
Yeah.
It's to
opportunity.
happen in the May, June time, by the May, June time.
Well, what I was hoping we wouldn't do, what I was hoping that we would not do is say, golly, this is going to be hard, so let's just come up with a bunch of standard signs. I mean, if we know May, June and can work backwards a bit, perhaps we can work out a schedule of putting some work maybe with you in terms of what you're going to be presenting to the board.
Right, what I was gonna say, based on what I've heard today, I can at least take it to the board and say, this is what we're trying to do here with the advisory panel, and what VDOT needs as far as decisions to work within the timeframes of the construction. Is the county ready to do it? And we as staff will go back in our back rooms and we'll dream up some ideas for them to at least act as a catalyst to get the thoughts going, and we'll see what the board says.
I might would just throw in too, this may be, because the March 4th is going to be the list of recommendations for businesses.
Right.
No final, just here's
Right.
the research behind. One of those may very well be a recommendation to, at some level, no offense to any of us here, a real design professional to talk about, here's what goes into the
Anybody offended? I don't
I mean, this is all fun and I like doing it, but
Yeah.
this is not what we do. And, somebody who does the branding knows, well, if you say this, then this is the positive, this is the negative. But it may be worth that investment to get somebody to take us through an exercise. I think we've done really good coming up with the concept, but let them talk about the advantages to disadvantages of color scheming something. And that may be something then that could be considered by the Board of Supervisors.
And I think that's important, just to kind of maybe summarize and bring it to, anything during construction is, VDOT. If no decision were made and no action were taken, we would try to make a real creative decision of northeast, southwest. So we're engineers, and that's what we do, come up with real creative.
On orange signs.
But,
Those black letters. Yeah. Well, it's got to be some of that. I mean, there's got to be some of that during construction.
If this is to be a long-term program, then there will need to be the local decision to have that be the case, because wayfinding truly is, which Dave mentioned, truly is a local program. VDOT does not do wayfinding just because we do it, like, we have all our logo and TODs, and that's important to designate, you got the wayfinding program, which is a very local program, and the TODs and the logo, those are very business, interstate, commercial, very separate programs. So getting into wayfinding is great, and I think it's a good direction that the panel has gone with this, but just to reiterate, that is a very local decision on the names and the concepts.
We have access to the person you're talking about, who is already part of VDOT's communications team. And this is what they do. This is exactly what they do. And let me, if I may, let me chew on that a bit. We may want to bring John in here, John Martin. But again, I'm trying to be cognizant of timing and thinking how we put everything together. But, to me, quite honestly, but this is me personally, if something's May, we could build 2 universes between now and May if we put our minds to it. if we put our minds to it. Well, I know. I'm never inclined to let bureaucracy defeat me, but I know at some point you have to get realistic about what you can accomplish. But if we parse out the issue and say, well, let's focus on a district with 4 identifiers, we're not trying to chew off the world, maybe in a period of time. If we're trying to make, if there are 10 decisions to be made and we're focused on 2 of the big ones, perhaps we can have some input as a panel together, hopefully, to get together into the county and on into VDOT.
So one thing that I would like to point out now, and we have some unique insight into this, is caution in the use of colors. Not that they can't be used, but there's some concern because of color blindness or making distinction of.
For Dave and I, we'll be going in all kinds of directions. But, yeah,
different cultures and nationalities associate colors with different things.
Yes.
Can 3 businesses be added to this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Quadrant?
If you want to write them down, we'll give them to Nathan. Nathan's been keeping this list. But absolutely, if you want to send me a note about them or whatever, Karen.
If there's anything missing from that list.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's 123 here, but absolutely. Well, let me say, it's 5 till 4 here. We talked about a lot of things. Is there a desire to chew on this just a little bit more? I'm not saying today, but to pull together some thoughts about branding the district in some way?
Well, I like the idea to get somebody that real design of signs, not me.
Yeah.
Take over. I think that idea makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
I'd
could,
like to
let me
apply
talk
some
to John.
That's it.
John is a real creative guy, and this is what he does. And John we have access to John, first of all, because he's already on board as part of the communications. John's company, SIR, is frankly one of the best I've seen that ties branding to research and gets underneath what people react to, not just generally worldwide, but in specific areas. He's done a world of research for VDOT in Virginia.
For years.
I mean, he was doing it when I was there and was doing it before I was there and is still doing it. It would...
Have him listen to our conversation today.
Yeah, well, I'll do that, and then we'll see if he can come. And
the next meeting.
Oh, no, yeah.
And maybe
yeah.
If he still wants to get some more out of us, he can be the conversation leader and see what he can get out of us.
Well, by
give us.
The next meeting, we'll know what you've presented to the board. And it's all just in the vein of generating some ideas here. We have an opportunity to generate some ideas. We need to take advantage of it or not. So.
One thing about presenting to the board and what I've learned out of your street naming ordinance and process is that the names are really up to the community. And the board doesn't approve specific names, but it approved the ordinance and the process of naming streets. Now, if there's a dispute, the board has final say in that. So is any board action necessary to name, for instance, the quadrants? Or
I don't believe so. I don't think the board would want to take that on. I'll go back to, this is defining the business's entity, the business identity. It really should be fed from the business community.
Yeah, I would say, agree with Brad. I would see this from a county perspective. This would typically, if it was going to come out, a need for quadrants, it would come out through the master planning effort. And it'd be something that came up from the community, from the public. and was done that way.
So in essence, what I'm hearing is that there's no county process that really adds any time to this decision-making process. If the community and representatives of the business community, many of which are in this room every 2 weeks, were able to name whatever these districts look like, I mean, that would filter up through the planning process and become part of that district. So what I'm saying is that, yeah, May, June is pretty close. I don't see a pathway that leads through a lengthy process of presenting and action by the board.
I don't believe the county's ever been involved in naming anything development-wise.
Well, then we can keep it that way. Okay.
I mean, developers name their own neighborhoods.
Right,
shopping
yeah, that's
centers,
true,
they all-
yeah. Okay.
And here it's more wayfinding when it's all said and done.
Yes, yeah.
Designating the areas. I gave up on quadrants. They're areas.
Yeah, areas,
This is
district,
an
that's fine.
And,
Yeah, okay.
And if we can color code it and say the green area, my business is in the green area of Rio 29. People would know what I'm talking about.
Okay, all right, we got,
I'm just going to say.
Come on.
I think this falls under the idea of economic development, and it's been an underrepresented part of our focus for a long time in this county. And I think there's new energy underneath that idea, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to take some action. I think that the business assistance packaging that's being discussed is this could be a good part of that. And I think that if there's going to be a marketing component in that, a shared marketing component, a co-op, whatever, the timing is right. It's perfect for this consideration. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I think the county should play a role in it. It's just my 2 cents.
okay.
Because I think that the big picture is held at the county level.
Okay. Please, I know how busy all of you are, but over the next 2 weeks, if you find yourself thinking about this topic any at all, just please send me a note. I can collect the notes. We share them with everybody. I know how busy you are. So if you don't, that's fine. I will have a chit chat with John Martin and see if we can get Kim here or somebody from his group here that would be valuable in helping us think through this a bit. I'll talk, Mark, maybe I'll talk with you just a little bit more to see how things are leading up to the 4th. And I'll make sure I have a good understanding of what we can get into you. I think this is a big deal and an important deal, and we have an opportunity to take advantage of it or not. So I vote for yes. Let's see where it goes. Okay, is that my phone? No, sorry about that. Go ahead to. No, you go forward. Go forward. Any new business or wrap up?
Yeah, I'm sorry I haven't been here for the last 2 exciting meetings, so I caught up today. Obviously the contract was awarded yesterday.
Yes.
The bids, I've been gone so long, the bids came in and the contract was awarded since I was here.
That's right.
So to say
No, the bids were, well, yeah, I guess that's right.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
So I wasn't able to congratulate everybody on the bids. Obviously, they came in pretty low.
Is just a
Got
very,
excited about that.
a very good value, absolutely.
Follow up to that is there's a little extra money. I think it's a really missed opportunity if we don't put a 4-lane structure across Berkmar on the Berkmar extension. I know the contract was awarded yesterday, but I still think it's worth looking at long term. That's going to be a missed opportunity. I think we already see the John Warner Parkway as a missed opportunity for not being a 4-lane road going into the city. And I think we're going to, it's a huge missed opportunity. You're never going to come back and build a second structure. So I'm on the record with that.
Okay.
The other one is is a little bit easier, and we've talked about it, is the U-turn on 29.
Yes, yes.
As Rio Road is trying to, in 103 days.
Flip that one of those maps back. I'm not sure it shows it though.
It's one page back, yeah, the green section.
Yeah.
As traffic's trying to go across 29 on Rio Road, there's a temporary cut. And I've talked to Chuck Levo at Rio Hills, and he's in agreement with me. We'd really like to see that slid a couple hundred feet to the south, so it's a U-turn only.
Yeah, and no left turn into
I just think it would be inundated with traffic to that mall. Everybody would shortcut that Woodbrook light and all the delivery trucks and such. I mean, it's only 103 days, so I think we can survive without a left turn.
I think Dave and I are both inclined to agree with you.
Okay, if anybody had any other ideas on that. It's rare that a business owner wouldn't want access, but in this case.
Yeah, that's true, but I think it's for good reason, based on what you described, and particularly with that.
That right turn is a grade, and if trailers try to do it, it's going to get ugly. So anyway, that's it.
Okay. Chip? Morgan? Brad? No. Chris? Karen?
Just to reiterate, it is really important, the signage and all of this, and the suggestions that we're making, you know, how they're going through, that they're not going, that they are going further than just this. It's not just an exercise in what would look good, what would sound good, what's the right name, but it's really going to make a difference, because going through that corridor during construction, if it's not understandable for travelers, for the community, to be disorganized and chaotic, it will be even more hurtful than it's probably going to be. And moving forward to maintain and create an identity of that area, and that what we're putting together here can hopefully make a difference in that.
Well, I'm certainly hoping that we're not just talking about it, that what we're talking about will result in have an impact of value. Absolutely.
I agree with
Thank
Sarah.
you.
That's it.
Thank you. So do I. So, thank you. Thank you. Hey, look, you asked earlier if John Nunley were interested in participating again. That's an easy answer. I hope everybody will participate fully and continue to participate. This has been, in spite of some contentious discussions, it's been valuable input, and we can continue to make a difference here. So thanks very much, and we'll see you on March the 5th. March the 5th.